You got the promotion. You negotiated the raise. Your salary now has a number in it that your younger self would have considered life-changing. You remember thinking, once I'm earning this much, everything will be fine. The stress will go away. The anxiety about money will finally stop. But here you are, making more than you ever have, and somehow the financial stress hasn't disappeared. If anything, it feels more complicated. The bills are bigger. The commitments are more. You look at your bank account at the end of the month, and the number sitting there doesn't match the salary going in. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a deeply uncomfortable question is forming. If I can't build wealth on this income, what is actually going on? Here's what I need you to hear before we go any further. You are not alone. And more importantly, this is not about how hard you work. This is about a trap. A very specific, very well-documented trap that millions of high earners fall into without ever seeing it coming. And today we're going to name it, explain it, and break you out of it. Hi, you can call me Miss Money, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people who earn good money still feel financially stuck, and what the gap actually is between earning well and building wealth. If you're someone who looks successful from the outside but privately wonders why your savings aren't growing the way your salary is, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you out. I post new videos every single day, and trust me, this is one you want to share with someone you know. Before we dive in, I want you to drop one word in the comments right now. Just one word that describes how you feel about your finances at this exact moment. Whether that's stressed, confused, stuck, hopeful, or anything else, drop it down there. I read every single comment, and it helps me understand where you actually are, so I can keep making content that genuinely helps. Let me tell you about a doctor in Chicago. She earns $380,000 a year. She drives a leased BMW. Her kids attend private school. She and her family eat at restaurants most weeknights. Her mortgage payment is $4,200 every month. From the outside, she looks like the definition of financial success. In reality, she cannot come up with $5,000 in cash without selling something or going into debt. Now, you might be thinking, that's an extreme case. That can't be representative. Here's the thing. According to a 2025 Goldman Sachs report, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 report living paycheck to paycheck. Read that again. 4 out of 10 people earning up to $500,000 a year feel they have no financial cushion. And 40% of those earning over $500,000 say the same thing. This isn't anecdotal. This isn't a rare exception. This is a documented, widespread financial pattern that affects people at every income level, and it has a name. It's called the high-income poverty trap. And if you've ever felt financially anxious on a salary that should, logically, be more than enough, you may already be in it. Here's what most people don't realize. Income and wealth are not the same thing. Most of us grow up believing they are. We watch people with nice cars and big houses and expensive clothes, and we assume they must have money. And for most of our lives, we use income as the primary measure of financial success. Get a better job. Earn more. Then everything else follows. The data tells a completely different story. According to research cited by multiple financial institutions in 2025, Americans earning $100,000 annually are actually more likely to report living paycheck to paycheck than those earning $50,000. Higher income, in certain brackets, correlates with higher reported financial strain. A PYMNTS study found that 48% of those earning $100,000 or more feel they're living paycheck to paycheck. Among those earning over $200,000, 36% report the same. Let that sit for a moment. People earning six figures, people who are objectively in the top tier of global earners, nearly half of them feel financially precarious. This is not a math problem. These are often highly educated professionals who understand compound interest and retirement projections. They know they should be saving more. They can do the calculations. The trap doesn't operate on arithmetic. It operates on psychology. Here's how the trap actually works, because once you see the mechanism, you cannot unsee it. When income goes up, spending goes up in almost direct proportion. This is what researchers call lifestyle inflation, and it happens so gradually that most people never notice it occurring. A $12 lunch becomes a $25 lunch. A Honda becomes a BMW. The perfectly adequate apartment becomes a house with a guest room that no one uses. The budget airline becomes business class because you've earned it. The grocery store becomes the premium supermarket because the difference per item feels negligible at your income level. Each individual upgrade feels completely reasonable. You worked for this. You can technically afford it. The math clears. But here's the insidious part. Every upgrade you make eventually stops feeling like an upgrade. It becomes baseline. It becomes normal. And once a luxury becomes your normal, returning to anything less than that feels like deprivation, even though 6 months ago you were perfectly happy without it. This is called the hedonic treadmill. And it is the psychological engine that powers the high-income poverty trap. The upgrades compound. The lifestyle commitments accumulate. Fixed costs rise, mortgage payments, school fees, lease agreements, membership dues. And these aren't easy to reverse. Pulling a child out of a private school feels impossible. Downgrading the car feels like a public signal that things aren't going well. Selling the holiday home feels like failure. The lifestyle tightens around you like a comfortable cage, and one day you realize that your entire income is committed before it even lands. This is where it gets really interesting because the data on how actual millionaires live completely contradicts the lifestyle most high earners are building. The classic research from the Millionaire next door found that most millionaires don't look like millionaires at all. They live in average neighborhoods. They drive older, reliable cars. They rarely display wealth externally. A 2025 Empower study found that over 62% of everyday millionaires, people with between 1 and 5 million in net worth, still budget, still shop for deals, and still actively avoid extravagant lifestyles, even after crossing the $1 million threshold. The typical millionaire has rarely spent more than $399 on a single article of clothing. About 60% live in homes worth less than $500,000. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest people in recorded history, still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Now, I'm not saying you need to live like you're broke to build wealth. That's not the point. The point is that the people who actually accumulate substantial wealth behave nothing like the people who merely appear wealthy. The doctor with the leased BMW looks far richer than the plumber who drives a 10-year-old truck, but the plumber might have $2 million in investments and zero financial anxiety. The authors of The Millionaire Next Door created 2 useful categories. Pause. Prodigious accumulators of wealth, and UAWs, under accumulators of wealth. And here's the uncomfortable truth. A person earning $50,000 a year can be more of a PAW than a person earning $700,000. The spending habits, not the income level, determine which category you fall into. They even created a formula. Take your age, multiply it by your pre-tax annual household income, then divide by 10. That number is roughly what your net worth should be. A 45-year-old earning $120,000 should have a net worth of approximately $540,000. Take a moment and do that calculation for yourself. If you're significantly below it, which most high earners are, the gap between what you're earning and what you're keeping is the cost of the trap you're in. Look, I want to talk about something that almost nobody in the financial space addresses honestly: social comparison. The Goldman Sachs report I mentioned earlier explicitly cited keeping up with the Joneses as a driver of paycheck to paycheck living among high earners. 6-figure workers report feeling pressure to match the spending of their peers, even when the math doesn't support it. And this pressure has intensified dramatically in the age of social media because now you're not just comparing yourself to your neighbors. You're comparing yourself to a curated global feed of highlights from people who might be even more financially leveraged than you are. Someone earning in the top 5% of incomes can genuinely feel financially inadequate because they're comparing their actual bank balance to someone else's Instagram story. The comparison isn't real, but the spending response to it is. The Charles Schwab 2025 Modern Wealth Survey found that Americans believe you need $2.3 million to be considered wealthy, and $839,000 just to feel financially comfortable. Meanwhile, The median net worth of American households is approximately $193,000. The gap between what people think they need and what they actually have is enormous, and the goalposts keep moving. Someone reaches $500,000 net worth and discovers that comfortable now means $839,000. They reach $1 million and find that wealthy now means $2.3 million. No amount ever feels sufficient because the definition of enough is constantly recalibrating upward. This is the hedonic treadmill again, and it explains why 77% of Americans, regardless of what they earn, report not feeling financially comfortable. Now let me show you what this actually costs in real numbers, because I think seeing the mathematics of the trap is what finally makes it real. Here's what most people don't realize about savings rates. The difference between a modest and a meaningful savings rate, compounded over time, is the difference between financial stress and genuine freedom. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the U.S. personal savings rate stood at just 3.6% in December 2025. Americans are saving approximately $3.60 out of every $100 of disposable income. Contrast that with research from the Millionaire next door, which found that actual millionaires typically invest at least 15% of their annual income before paying for anything else. Let's put real numbers on that difference. Someone earning $300,000 who saves 5% accumulates $15,000 per year. At a 7% average return over 20 years, that becomes approximately $650,000. Someone earning $300,000 who saves 30% accumulates $90,000 per year. Same return, same timeline. That becomes roughly $4 million. The difference between those two people is $3.35 million. They earn identical salaries. They work in the same field. One of them just made different choices about what portion of their income to keep. That $3.35 million gap, that is the actual price tag of the high-income poverty trap over 2 decades. And here's the thing that makes this even more uncomfortable. The 5% saver isn't living dramatically better than the 30% saver. They're driving a slightly nicer car, eating at slightly fancier restaurants, taking marginally more expensive holidays. The lifestyle difference is real but modest. The wealth difference, 20 years later, is catastrophic. Let me break down exactly where the money goes, because high earners are often genuinely surprised when they audit their own spending. The fixed cost trap is particularly dangerous at higher income levels. When you earn $50,000, your housing is constrained by what lenders will approve. When you earn $300,000, you qualify for mortgages that stretch your budget just as thin. They just involve much larger numbers. A family earning $80,000 might spend $2,000 monthly on housing. A family earning $300,000 might spend $8,000. Both families have roughly the same percentage of income going to shelter. Both families feel equally squeezed. The higher income family has more expensive problems, but the same fundamental lack of flexibility. Private school fees, multiple car payments, country club memberships, vacation property costs, these aren't frivolous in the traditional sense. They're lifestyle commitments that function exactly like fixed costs once established. And fixed costs are brutal because they're resistant to change. You can cut a dinner out. You cannot easily cut your mortgage payment, your child's school mid-year, or your lease agreement. Then there's the discretionary creep that compounds on top of the fixed costs. According to Empower data, food delivery spending increased over 10% year-on-year, now averaging $179 monthly. That's $2,148 a year, just on food delivery. Streaming services, ride shares, subscription boxes, premium apps, each one individually negligible. Collectively, they form a significant monthly drain that most people have never actually added up. The high-income version of this involves larger numbers with identical psychology. Business class instead of economy. 5-star hotels instead of comfortable ones. Tasting menus instead of good restaurants. Each feels like a minor upgrade. Together, they form a lifestyle that requires the full income to sustain, with nothing left over. There's also a regional dimension worth understanding, particularly if you live in or near a major city. In Schwab's survey, residents of San Francisco said you need $4.4 million to be considered wealthy. Southern California, $3.4 million. New York, $2.9 million. High-cost cities inflate both expenses and expectations simultaneously. A $300,000 income in a mid-tier city provides a genuinely comfortable, wealth-building lifestyle. The same income in Manhattan or London or Sydney can leave you feeling financially constrained because your housing costs, taxes, and baseline expenses consume a far greater proportion of what comes in. If you live in an expensive city, you need to be especially deliberate about this because the social comparison pressure is highest, the fixed costs are biggest, and the lifestyle expectations are most aggressive, all at the same time. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I understand the trap. But how do I actually get out of it without destroying my quality of life? Here's the thing, escaping the high-income poverty trap doesn't require dramatic deprivation. It requires intention. Most people trapped in it never consciously chose their spending patterns. They accumulated expenses gradually, each individual decision perfectly reasonable in isolation, until their entire income was committed and there was no margin left. Reversing this requires doing something most people never do. A complete, honest audit of every recurring expense in your life. Go through your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements, line by line. For every recurring charge, ask 2 questions. Am I still using this? And is what I'm getting from it worth what I'm paying? You will find things you forgot you were paying for. Services that became habit rather than value. Upgrades that stopped feeling like upgrades months ago. Most people who do this exercise find several $100s per month in spending that delivers no meaningful value to their actual life. That money is not a rounding error. At 7% returns over 20 years, $400 per month becomes approximately $245,000. You already earned it. You just need to redirect it. Step 1. Automate savings before anything else. This is the single most structurally important thing you can do at any income level. The sequence that creates wealth is not earn, spend, save whatever's left. That sequence guarantees savings will always be minimal because spending expands to fill available income every time for everyone. The sequence that creates wealth is earn, save first, spend what remains. Set up automatic transfers to your investment accounts the moment your salary arrives. Treat it exactly like a bill, non-negotiable, paid before anything else. You adapt your lifestyle to the smaller number. And you barely notice because you never see the money in your spending account in the first place. Step 2. Calculate your actual savings rate and set a target. If you don't know what percentage of your income you're currently saving, you need to find out. A meaningful wealth-building savings rate is typically 15% minimum and ideally 20 to 30% if you're catching up. If you're currently at 4%, you don't need to jump to 25% overnight. Increase by 2% every few months. Your lifestyle adjusts without the shock, and the compounding effect accumulates. Step 3. Address your fixed costs honestly. This is the hardest part because fixed costs involve identity and social signaling. But it's also where the biggest money is. A car payment of $900 per month, invested instead at 8% returns over 15 years, is $310,000. Not the car itself, just the payment. These are the decisions that determine which side of the wealth equation you end up on. Step 4. Run the PAW formula. Multiply your age by your annual household income. Divide by 10. That's your target net worth. If you're significantly below it, the gap tells you exactly how much of your earning history the trap has consumed. Use it as a motivating number, not a shame spiral. You can close the gap, but only if you stop losing ground first. Step 5. Stop optimizing for how wealth looks and start optimizing for how wealth compounds. This sounds abstract, but it's deeply practical. Every purchase decision you make is implicitly a choice between the appearance of financial success and the accumulation of it. The BMW signals success. The index fund builds it. The private school signals aspiration. The investment account funds actual options for your children. Neither is inherently wrong, but they need to be conscious trade-offs, not automatic defaults. Here's what I want to leave you with, because I think it's the most important thing in this entire video. The high-income poverty trap is not about how much you earn. It is about what you keep. A $200,000 income with a 30% savings rate builds wealth faster than a $400,000 income with a 5% savings rate. The mathematics is completely clear on this. And yet millions of people earning excellent salaries will spend their entire career believing that more income is the answer, when the answer was always what they chose to do with the income they already had. 77% of Americans don't feel financially comfortable regardless of what they earn. 40% of people making $500,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Total credit card debt hit all-time highs in 2025 while incomes were near record levels. The evidence is overwhelming. Income alone does not create financial security. Only intentional choices about what portion of that income to keep, month after month, year after year, create the freedom that most people assume high salaries automatically provide. You are not behind because you don't earn enough. You may be behind because no one ever showed you clearly how the trap works, and you've been running on the hedonic treadmill without realizing it was moving. Now you see it. Now you can step off. Drop a comment below and let me know, what was the single biggest insight from this video? The one thing that made you think, I need to change that. I genuinely want to know. Your answer might shape the next video I make for you. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. I am here every single day with content that is honest, practical, and designed to help you build real financial security, not the appearance of it. I'm Miss Money, and I'll see you in the next one.